it's Tash from Foxes and Brown Bears Tarot, and today I'm going to be doing a VR to Jen's Balance Tarot. This is the Balance the Deck Scales. I have taken a while to do this one because it actually took a bit of thought. So the idea is to pair decks to find balance in your various aspects of your life. And so as Jen explains, it's really trying to find two decks for each element that are pretty much two sides of the same coin. So not necessarily opposites, but decks that will give you different aspects of that element. All right, so I'm going to start with water. And my first water deck is the Lightsaber Tarot. And the reason I picked this one is because, first of all, it's super blue. Anyone who's seen my Rainbow Decks VR would see that this is the one I chose as my blue deck. But I also feel that it really deals with emotions on a very strong level. So, for example, particularly the swords, which are generally very much about intellect, but in this case, they still give you this very strong emotional feel. So it's quite guttural. So this Eight of Swords, for example, depicting being entrapped by your own mind, but you can really feel her emotion. Same here, the Two of Swords, which is generally quite an analytical card, is in this case still very much showing a bit of confusion, frustration. Three of Swords, super emotive. It's probably one of my favorite Three of Swords. If you've seen my major favorites video, you'll see that. And in the Pentacles there, you can see his love for what he's planted, strong relationship with what he's created, and also just that desire for it to come to fruition. There you can really get her sense of pride in her success. This one's one of my favorite, Ten of Wands. Just beautiful, just gives you that real sense of release, burden. This voyage is taking a while. But what I really like about this deck is it brings emotion, but it gives it to you in a very kind manner. So it's reality. In this case, the Five of Pentacles, you're really seeing the reality of her situation, but at the same time really showing the escape very clearly. So it's emotional, but also quite comforting in its own little way. The other watery deck in my collection is the Shadowland Tarot. Now, this may not look like a very watery deck, but I do feel that way. Because once again, very strong sort of guttural emotion. So they're the Seven of Pentacles. Just really hard hitting. So the way I describe this deck, it's almost like wading through emotional molasses. So, I don't know, it really packs an emotional punch. Really gets to the heart of the matter. So, and even like the Empress, which is meant to be a very positive card of fertility and everything going really well, still has hints of the cycles of nature, like in the skull. This idea that you still have the darkness in nature. So yeah, very emotional in my opinion. This Chariot, massive hit. And this one, for example, looking at the Three of Swords, so it's all this pain, but in some sense, the way I read this card is by seeing that he's almost put on his sunglasses and he's putting on this facade of the world as though, nah, I'm okay. I haven't been affected. So that's It's that relationship of your emotions as well. And this is just the most beautiful Lovers card. Just, you really feel it on a heart level. The idea of love coming between two very different characters. So they're my water decks. Now for my earth decks, which Jen describes as focusing on like work and career and whatnot, I have actually looked at it as things that really feel earthy to me on some level. And so the first one is my Animal Totem Tarot. And this one is just pure animal energy. Very down to earth. And that's just super earthy. I mean, can't get past animals for that. Very grounded. So some chickens. Beautiful Queen of Pentacles, where there's a pig enjoying her life, living her best life in the mud. A very grounded version of the Four of Pentacles. Even the Seven of Cups, which is generally cups in the sky, are very much grounded in reality in this one. They're very much physical cups. And the other reason I've picked this as an earthy deck is it really shows the raw power of nature. So it doesn't just show the fluffy parts. It's this idea that, okay, this is what nature is. And you can see there the sort of prey-predator relationship. You can see having to deal with death. Beautiful Three of Swords. But at the same time, gorgeous cards. Very sweet. So you see the sweet animals as well. And you get that real earthiness, the beauty of nature. All right, now my other one, it's a bit surprising to me when I really thought about it. And you may disagree, but this is the Deviant Moon Tarot. Now, I suppose you could have put this into other elements as well, because it is quite a deep deck. But to me, first of all, are the colours. They're very earthy colours. And they are very, very concrete representations of the concepts. So, for example, death here is not just something off in the sky. It's not some sort of ethereal representation. It is very rooted in reality. Okay, so it's this little baby death wanting to climb back into the womb. My mother death who's pregnant. There's a real physicality about that card. Also very rooted in its own world. So all the cards very much belong to the world that Patrick Valenza created for these particular figures. So there are no characters that really extend beyond this very physical world. And for that reason, I find it a very, very grounded deck. And even here with justice, it's the physical elements of justice. It's the catching the little bad eggs, bad fish in this case. You even have the Star who's seated, very much in a physical landscape. Cards like the Hermit, which are not about an escape from the world. It's very much, you can't leave this world. It's very grounded as this is something you have to deal with in reality. And you see this even here with the Ten of Swords. Very much depicting that it's almost like it's a physical reality that this particular character is dealing with. So it still has those higher ideas, but the representations are so concrete that to me this is super earthy. And like even this, the Four of Swords, really being buried in the earth to rest. So yes, and always just this background, this world that's been created for them. So that is my flip side. So even though the animal totem had its dark elements, I still feel that this one packs a harder punch. All right, my fire decks. This was really hard. It was quite an interesting one actually to do. And the first one I have is the Muse Tarot. So I picked this because I felt that fire is a lot about creativity. And since this is a deck about creativity, that was, I guess, a clear option. And here you can see that's very much harnessing creativity. Here you can see the magician, it's creating something out of the ether. This is my favorite card in the deck, the Chariots. And it's harnessing pure willpower. It's showing that willpower to see your creation to fruition. And I think that's really important, that power within, that fire within. It's a beautiful card. Another one, a lot of the aces, and particularly since it's a whole suit called Inspiration, which very much speaks of fire and creativity. All the knights in this deck are super fiery. Very energetic. This one looks like it's actually got fire coming off it, off its mane. The fireworks. It's getting things done. Yeah, and also that effort in creating your dream. So yeah, that's the Muse Tarot. Then my other one is a very strange choice. My other fire deck is the Housewives Tarot. And the reason I picked this one is because it's super feisty. So it's not about creativity, but it shows the other side of fire. It's that real strength of character, the feistiness, the wittiness, the seeing life in a different way. And so very humorous, very creative in its own way. But for example, the High Priestess here, who's just the secret recipe. So to me, that's actually quite funny. Hilarious card in my opinion. But almost a bit of sarcasm too. So the World card, it's almost, you've got all your little recipes, you've got your family, you've got your house, you've got your husband, children, and that's your whole world. That should be your whole world. And I almost feel as though this card is almost saying, is it? Can it be? So, I don't know. I know I might just be reading that into it, but I find it quite sarcastic. This one also showing that a lot of the cards actually show that you've got this perfect housewife, supposedly, but she can be a bit of a bitch. So in this case, it can be pretty cruel to her loved ones. Okay, so very fiery nature. Another example then, the Hanged Man. You know, hanging people out to dry. That to me is super fiery and feisty. The whole backstabbing, gossip. And this one is hilarious. It's her backstabbing mother-in-law. And finally, strength. So, bit of elbow grease. Nice depiction of strength. So yeah, so I feel like this whole deck is a bit tongue-in-cheek, and it's kind of an expression of the fire within. Fun, air. So my first deck for air is the White Sage Tarot. And this is a cute little deck. Super cute deck. Now this one I picked as air because it's actually quite, even though it does depict animals, it is very airy, light, and at the same time is also actually quite thought-provoking. It's quite subtle, so it requires a fair bit of analysis because it doesn't always link very explicitly to the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. So I think I need to think about this one. And they're just the magician, just the eye and the feather. Just subtle nods, so the chariot, just the two horses with a slight hint of wheel. Also drawing on some cultural references. So for example, the weighing of the heart against the feather of Mart, which is an ancient Egyptian myth. And if your heart weighed more than the feather, then you'd be consumed by a horrible monster. And if it weighed the same, passed the test, you could enter the afterworld. And very conceptual too. So the world in an acorn. Knowing that from this acorn will come an entire oak tree and the entire ecosystem that will live within that oak tree. And so one little kernel holds everything. Another reason why I see this as an air deck is because it is effectively a pip deck, my only pip deck. So it does require a bit more thought. But you can see here that it's just super airy. And it's also linked to chakras. So here you've got pink, so I think that's the heart chakra. Or maybe it's not. I can't actually remember the chakras in this one. And you've got, so you can see this one's green. So that must be the heart chakra. And blue. But you can see it's very pippish, very airy, just a beautiful, beautiful deck. And that's my first air deck. And even though it's super analytical, super conceptual, I still think it's a very kind, soft portrayal. Gives you accurate messages, but in a quite subtle, kind manner. My other air deck, on the other hand, is pretty hard hitting. And this is the New Era Elements Tarot. So, this one could not be more different from the White Sage. And the reason I've picked this as an air deck is because it is very thought-provoking and mentally challenging. So first of all, it is based on the Thoth system, which I'm not very familiar with. And so I find already it's going to be more conceptual, a bit more of a challenge, particularly for me. But then the depictions within the deck are also mentally challenging for different reasons. So the Hierophant, for example, drawing on all the symbols of all the different religions. So a lot of thought going into that and really exploring all those elements. So there's a lot of cultural references, and you can see that of the Devil, which is a super hard-hitting card. You know, being able to recognize the symbols of oppression. Super conceptual as well. So the Fool, starting out in life. It's just this fetus in an egg. It's the very beginning. It's also an air deck because I find it mentally challenging to really read the court cards. So the Son of Fire, for example, there's no real symbols attached to this. So it's very much an intuitive deck in that sense. Like, it's really requires a lot of thought. So you can see it's got the keywords for the minors. It's also got astrological symbols. So once again, another layer of meaning, another layer of thought that has to be taken into account. Once again, very much having to draw on world knowledge. Let's see, very hard hitting. Also drawing on historical and cultural knowledge again. So recognizing that as the Twin Towers, but also the coming down the Berlin Wall, and understanding the difference between those, where one of the towers coming down is a destructive act that brings enormous pain, but then another tower coming down is actually a very constructive act that can bring a new beginning and release and liberation. So the two edges of the sword. So yes, so very different from the White Sage, but to me that's a very, very thoughtful deck. All right, and then finally I have Spirit. And for this one, it's really seen to be about spiritual development, communicating with spirit. The first one I've picked is the Arthurian Tarot. This is my 2006 edition. And with this one, I've picked it to be Spirit because it is very much about a spiritual quest. It is the Arthurian quest for the Grail, for the Hallows. And so you can see here, for example, the Fool. He's undertaking his journey along the rainbow path, having to leave behind the physical to go on this vision quest almost. Even cards that are very earthy looking have much more to them. So there you got the White Heart. So there's sort of this spiritual element to the Lover's card. And even very, very concrete images as well, like Pridwen, which is the Chariots. And this is King Arthur's ship. And this depicts the voyage in search of the cauldron owned by the Lord of the Underworld. And so in this sense, it's a spiritual challenge, is who has the spiritual tenacity and strength to survive this ordeal. And here the Grail 8, which is the 8 of Cups. And so it's not just the walking away from a situation that no longer serves you, but this represents Lancelot, who has to turn back from the Grail Chapel. And the reason for that is because it's not his destiny to find the Grail. And so it's recognizing that this is not his spiritual journey to take. Even the Grail 10, which is the 10 of Cups, really depicts not this happy family or this joy in relationships. It really represents the Grail Castle of Soros. So this is where the mysteries of the Grail will be revealed. So your ultimate achievement here is discovering those spiritual mysteries, not finding your perfect joy in the material world. So that's my first spiritual deck. My second one is a weird choice, quite different. This is the Dark Mansion Tarot. And the reason I've picked this one is because it doesn't depict a spiritual quest, but it is my soul deck. And for some reason, and I actually spent quite a bit of time thinking about this, and I really don't know why. I don't know why it's so spiritual to me. because the pictures are quite cartoony. It is very Rider-Waite-Smith inspired. A lot of the images are quite physical, practical, but for some reason I see something beyond that, and it speaks directly to me. And I find it quite intuitive, so that's why I've picked this one. I've just gone with it because that's how I felt. But just, yeah, so I just thought I'd show you my favourite cards that really speak to me. So the Eight of Wands. I love this death. It's been stalking me a little bit, but I love him because he's hilarious. Like, super bored deaf. It's awesome. And the Three of Wands. I don't know, I just feel like I can see the whole story in this. Like, I can create a little movie in my mind, and I almost attribute specific characteristics to all these people. And the Chariots. It's wonderful. And even this little dude, who just seems, I don't know, just really speaks to me. And this World card speaks to me. It's just so beautiful. So yes, they're gorgeous, gorgeous cards. Gorgeous Hermit. I love this Hermit. Temperance is so beautiful. And I love the Queens in this deck. So yes, so that is my second spirit deck because it's my soul deck. And so I think that's just another side of spirituality in that sense. All right, so that's my balance the deck scales. Let me know if you agree. It was super fun. It was a very challenging VR to do because even though I was able to pick certain decks quite quickly, I had to take some time to think about why I picked them. And so it was a really good challenge actually, because it really made me think about why I feel a particular way about some of my decks. All right, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.